AI can present that next step. So you can give them information in a very powerful UI, UX that guides the agent step by step, leveraging AI. When you're in the line of fire, you just need the next step, the next best action. That is where we believe that AI can still help you there. But just putting an AI wrapper, like a GPT wrapper on your solution, doesn't move the needle for those types of complex use cases. That is the future of customer experience. Basically, no interactions. You just say what you want. You have something in your mind and you say it, and it gets resolved. That is where we're heading, and I see that happening.
All right, Juan, thanks again for doing this. We're really excited to talk to you. Maybe just to kick us off, could you just quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What do you do? What is Zingtree?
Carsten, thanks again for having me. Thanks to you and HTEC for putting this AI thought leadership podcast together. Excited to be here. Juan Jaysingh, CEO of Zingtree. We are in I would call the hottest space in AI in agentic world, in the customer support space. We provide AI agentic solutions for our customers to provide world-class customer experience for their human agents who are handling customer calls, or the end consumers like you and me who have an issue with our flight ticket or a Sony TV product that we're trying to troubleshoot. So that's what we do. We're a agentic solution providing world-class customer experience for our businesses that work with Zingtree.
Great. Let's start with a really basic question. What is a world-class customer experience, and how do you think will customer experience change with AI?
Let me start by saying first, the task that we have at hand, when I say we, the industry, it's extremely difficult and hard. Because if it was easy, it would have been solved by now. Even with billions of dollars of investment, time, energy put into this, I just looked at a LinkedIn post just this weekend. I'm on my way to Zendesk Relate. Zendesk is a great partner of Zingtree. They provide world-class customer experience as well, and that's their motivation and inspiration, same like Zingtree. But one of their leaders was talking about a challenging issue they had with United Airlines, talking to a chatbot, running into circles. And then during that same week, I hear an issue about someone on a call with an agent spent 40 minutes and couldn't resolve the issue. And you and me as consumers, we felt the pain. Everyone that we talk to understand the issues. And I do want to start by saying, being in the space and learning from our customers, learning from the people at the ground level, everyone is super motivated to go solve these issues, and people come with the right mindset majority of the time to do their best work to resolve these issues. However, there are a lot of different factors that go into why we run into these challenges. So I want to start with that. We all know about all the challenges, but the people at the ground level, human agents who are taking a call, they have a ton of empathy. They're coming into line of fire, and they're trying to do their best job to make a pleasant experience for folks like you and me. Even though when you and me, and especially me, sometimes I'm frustrated even when I call and I keep hitting zero. I don't want to talk to a bot. I want to talk to a human who can resolve my issue all the time. But we have to come in with that kind of mindset now that I know the business, the industry well, that it's not easy to solve these issues. So I wanted to just mention that. But what does world-class, customer experience look like? In my view, in Zingtree's view, it is about providing a resolution to the end customer. The end customer, in our view, is an end consumer who's dealing with an issue, or even a human agent who's trying to solve for a consumer that they're supporting. Right? So it's all about the resolution. So I'd rather take a call being 10 minutes long and resolving that issue, making that end person's life easier, than finishing a call in 2 minutes and not resolving the issue. Okay, so the focus is about providing world-class experience. For us means you're taking an action, and that action is really resolving that customer issue and making it a good experience, therefore making it a good experience for the end user.
And resolving the issue could mean that I'm not going to get my claim, that I'm not going to get the money back from the airline, right?
But being able to give the right information with the right data, with the right, policies. And yes, you're right. There might be situations where, dear sir, you're not going to get your money back because today is the 47th day after you purchased your ticket, and our company guidelines and policy says that you can get a full refund within 45 days of purchase.
Mm-hmm. So how do we
so if you can give that level of detail and information, right, while you're dealing, with a frustrated customer, you're right in the middle of the line of fire. If you can be thoughtful and give the right data, right information to the end consumers, I do believe, and you can say it with confidence, people are people are human, and they will, appreciate that insight. If I say something like, hey, sorry, sir, we just can't refund you. I apologize. Or, hey, I'm not able to do anything for you. Right? You're going to be like, why the hell did I spend 10 minutes with you? Mm-hmm. Right? But if I can explain to you very clearly, based on these rules and policies, this is what we can do. With that said, I know you're a VIP customer. We appreciate your business. Let me take this up to our supervisors to see what more they can do for you. But I just want to be clear with you that these are the guardrails, these are the guidelines, these are the policies. It's 45 days, you get the refund. Unfortunately, you're on your 47th day. But I can't guarantee you anything, but I'm going to try my best to see what we can do for you. It's out of my control, but let me go to my supervisor and see what they say. And I will follow up with you after I talk to our supervisor.
Understood.
Right? And people will say, okay, you know what? Yes, I'm out of bounds here, but you're trying to do your best for me, so I appreciate that. Most people would. Some people will still be pissed off. You see those outliers, but that's kind of what we see.
And so where does AI come into play here? How can AI improve the customer experience?
So a lot of times, these human agents, when you look at these people in this industry, most of the time they're not they're not coming in to be a human agent, a call center agents for the rest of their lives. For most of these people, majority of the people coming into this line of work, it's probably their first job, or it's probably one of their first jobs, entry-level job. They want to get their career started. This is a great place for them to get into a business and eventually grow within that, customer experience space, but it might be a stepping stone to get a different job. And we see that a lot. So that's why one of the main reasons there's a lot of retention issues. And it's very hard to solve for that because, hey, I'm 22 years old. My goal is not to be a call center agent for the rest of my life. I'm coming here to make ends meet for the next 2 years while I, take that experience and grow into something else. That's the mindset I'm coming with, and that's what we see at the ground level. So when they come in, they don't have all the knowledge. They don't have, United Airlines, all the, policies and procedures, and they don't have that in their head. No matter how long training I go through, I can go through 3 months of training, 6 months of training, and it's a lot of content. I may not even remember it. So this is where AI comes into play. You can use AI to understand United Airlines policies, procedures, guidelines, guardrails, where there needs a supervisor approval, where AI can be fully autonomous and make a refund. And once you understand that, this information can be surfaced in a seamless manner where the agent doesn't have to go look for it. It's right in front of them where they can see it and say, hey, have that empathetic conversation with you, saying, without having to, fudge around and look around, very confidently tell you, I understand what you're saying. Here's the situation. The policy is 45 days. You're 47 days. Unfortunately, we as a company cannot give you a refund. With that said, I see that you also a VIP customer. AI can notify the human agent that you're a VIP customer. You've got global service. You've got 1K status. So, let's take a closer look at this and see what more we can do for you because we appreciate your business. Right?
And how do you avoid
the fingertips of the agent thanks to AI?
Yeah. And how do you avoid overwhelming the agent? Because you have all the information at your fingertip. As you said, these people are not that experienced. You could drown them in data. How do you deliver the right information at the right time?
I mean, not only can you drown them, you've got tools that, nothing against these tools, but you've also got tools that is coaching them live. So imagine you're in the line of fire. You got to figure out what to say. And if you don't say it right, you got someone chipping at you saying, hey, man, you need to cool off, or you need to speak louder, or whatever, is happening. So you have all these, challenges these human agents are facing. So that is a real issue. So, I see you understand this space well. One of the things where Zingtree does this at a really different way is, yes, AI can give you all this information right at your fingertips, but how do you digest it? And that's something we take into account when we provide a solution. You can get a generative summary of everything, the policy for all about refunds, okay? And that could be 3 paragraphs long, but we take that information and present it in a digestible manner in 1 line, 2 lines, where now the agent has this at their fingertips, where they don't have to go read a paragraph or read a page or read a document about the policy. They just need to know what's the next step to say. You're 47 days out, information comes right there in front of them thanks to AI and how Zingtree presents it to them. And the policy is 45 days. Now I know what to say. So I don't need to go read a whole paragraph or a whole document to get that information. And then once you say, oh man, that's a bummer, and right there you get information saying, hey, but this person is a VIP customer. Let's see if we can talk to the supervisor. Right? AI can present that next step. So you can give them information in a very powerful UI, UX that guides the agent step by step, leveraging AI versus giving, because, we can go to GPT and we can get a whole, page, but who's going to have time to read through it, right? And when you're in the line of fire, you just need the next step, the next best action. And we can provide that leveraging AI, so the human agent can have a empathetic and a real authentic conversation than a scripted one.
So I understand how that improves the agent experience, the agent performance, because you're delivering the right information at the right time for these agents to be able to access all this complicated information, right? So, I mean, for me, as a customer, as an end user of these systems, I mean, personally, I will do anything to avoid dialing into a contact center, right? The day I get up and I have to call my airline or my health insurance company is like my worst day.
Because you probably failed on the digital side. Right?
Yes,
Because I'm the same way. Hey, let me see if I can do this. And then either I try it or I know this brand doesn't provide that level of service from my prior experience. So I just make the call right away. I'm like, I don't want to go through this pain of 5 minutes through a chat bot or trying to self-solve because I know this didn't help me last time. And I'm just programmed that way. We as humans have behaviors and, we go down that path. And even when I call, you have a bot. And even before the bot can speak, I know when I call some certain numbers all the time, I just press 0.
Yes. So I come into the call already hot.
Exactly.
With the expectation that it's going to be annoying and not lead to a good resolution. How can AI make me feel better as an end user? How do you optimize for the emotions of the end customers?
Yeah, so that's a great point, because when you make that call, you're already pissed off. And it's a high stake, interaction now, because you have already tried. Most people have. It depends on, what you're calling about, depends on the demographics, the age, and all those things come into factor. But definitely, a big percentage of folks are, like what you just described. They already tried to solve on their own. They couldn't get a resolution. Now they're frustrated, and they're like, crap, I don't want to do this, but I have to. And they pick up the phone and call. So I think that first interaction is so critical. And we call it, there's all these different metrics that you follow in the contact center. But I think one of the most important metrics is first contact resolution. Mm-hmm. They call it FCR. And the first contact resolution doesn't start at the phone level, like you said. It could be on digital. So what can you do when you have a customer that knocks on your door, which is your website or your support page or your chatbot, to identify the issue and resolve it right there for them, so they don't have to make that human call? AI can provide a ton of value there if you can build it in the right way. And building, again, it's not easy, otherwise people would have done it, but you need a lot of factors to work well together. Not just the solution that Zingtree has, also the environment and the infrastructure that your customer has. And you guys know this better than anyone. HTEC, you guys work with top 50 of the 100 Fortune companies in the world. So every company that you work with has a completely different DNA in their infrastructure, their systems, their environment, their data policy. So it's a two-way street. You got to understand the environment that you're getting into on the customer side, your business side. You got to understand the end-to-end customer, the end user. You got to then calibrate your solution to fit into that environment. And then you have to get some wins quickly, and then you got to build the case. So it takes, it takes a village to make this happen. But that's where it needs to go, and that's where it needs to be. And we've done it, others have done it. But can you do it all the time? Can you do it at scale? And that's all, the opportunity that we're going after. So you're 100% right. Can we solve it right at that first interaction? And if that first interaction comes digital, how do you make that a pleasant experience by giving the right information to the consumer and resolving their issue right there? So let's get a little more. Resolve it, explaining to them why you can and how you're going to try your best to help them in the next phase. Whether if you're transferring them to a human agent, you're transferring them to an AI agent on the phone, you give them the right explanation right there so they understand what is going on.
I'd be interested in a little more on the details about building it in the right way, and specifically about maybe one of your spicier takes. So since Chat AI, there's been this obsession with Gen AI, and one of the things you've talked about is that deterministic solutions might often be better than the non-deterministic Gen AI solutions. Can you explain the difference and why it matters?
Yeah, so it depends on the type of customers you're working with. So let me start with that first, and the pain points and what's the right solution. So there are use cases, and a lot of times, we always say at Zingtree, industries like healthcare, insurance, financial services, large consumer products, hospitality. We were just talking about rebooking or canceling a flight. That's such a pain sometimes. And gaming, there's a ton of different policies based on the state you're gambling in, or based on the country in Europe you're gambling in, fines associated with this. So these are all complex, compliance-related, regulated industries. So we always say, hey, that's where we shine. But when you really look under the hood, I would make a bet. You're talking about gambling. I would make a bet. I'll put a lot of money on it that every company, doesn't matter if they're in insurance or they're in retail or they're in tech or fitness, health and wellness, maybe not majority of the use cases, but they have some use cases where it is super complex, where there's a ton of compliance that needs to go into it to make sure they don't, do the wrong thing and get into hot waters. So so that is where we believe that AI can still help you there. But just putting an AI wrapper, like a GPT wrapper on your solution, doesn't move the needle for those types of complex use cases. What you need is, in the old school days, where part of Zingtree's DNA and we've evolved, is you really need a powerful workflow engine that has all the ability to drive all the rules, the logic, to be able to guide the business and eventually the users to the next best action. In the new world, thanks to agentic solutions out there, you have to now not just build a wrapper, you have to bring in these agentic solutions, but provide them the right guardrails. Right? Very similar to having like workflows with, and that's our strength when we started Zingtree in 2020. Our strength was, we understood how to build rules and logic to handle the complex, to handle the compliant, to handle the regulated industries. How do you evolve that in the agentic world is even how you built solutions 2 years ago. It's all about building AI agents. Today, when people were building 2 years ago, they didn't have Claude Code. Now, if you're building a new company, you can build it, or a new product, you can build in a very different way where you can still add, the right amount of guardrails to handle the complexity. And that is one of our strengths. So we understand what a United Healthcare needs. These are customers of Zingtree, or what a Sony needs, what a Allianz needs, what a eTravelI needs, what a First Central needs, because we've been dealing in this complex compliance space for a long time, and we've become business experts. So you really need that agentic solution. You also need the business experience. You need to tie that together to build a solution leveraging AI to handle the handle the complex. And that's where we see, yes, you can call it deterministic. However, as we've been evolving Zingtree, we see that as still truly agentic with the right amount of guardrails and the skills and the rules that can be applied into that agentic solution. And to do that, you need technology, you also need business experience, and you need to be able to, spend the time in terms of tech and business side to make that level of investment to handle those complexity.
Could you provide maybe an example of a guardrail in a heavily regulated industry, and what would happen if you don't have them, if you don't have the proper guardrails in place?
Sure. So think of, hey, I'm a large healthcare provider, and I provide various different types of solutions to payers, providers, hospitals, and consumers directly. I'll give you two use cases. One is, feel free to use which one you like, but one is I just submitted a claim, and it's a claim for me getting cancer treatment. Okay, so it's a tough situation, and my claim has been denied. So when I reach out to understand why my claim has been denied, I'm either going through a digital experience or through a phone experience. So if I'm going through either one, and I'm talking to a bot and an agentic solution, if they give me the wrong information on why my claim was denied. Sorry, we do not approve your claim because we don't, you're over 60 years old, and this is not your first time you've had cancer, and you haven't purchased the right Medicare solutions, and therefore your cancer bill will not be covered. Cancer treatment bill will not be covered. If that is incorrect, you have the potential to get sued. So that is a real use case that happens. The other use case is talking about it's not even customer service, it's actually a sales use case, but you're providing a type of customer service. If I'm signing up for Medicare, Medicaid, you have a window between October to January, I believe, where you have your enrollment period. And all these large companies who are providing these solutions are taking thousands or 20,000 plus calls a day. They're making 20,000 calls to get people enrolled in these products. And there are about 50 or so products that are out there in the market. So if you end up giving the wrong information when you're educating the consumer, who may be 60 years plus or older, and you don't have the audit trail, again, you can get sued. So these are high value use cases. Why? Because getting it wrong is real, at the end of the day, it's a real challenge for the end consumer, and therefore you can get sued. There's there's loss for your company from a cash standpoint. There's loss in terms of revenue, top line. So you can get hurt on both sides, bottom line issues, top line issues for the company. So there's real cost implications, business implications, brand implications with this. So that's where we run into these types of situations. These are high value, use cases because they're complex, compliant, they're in regulatory industries, and even if they're not in regulatory industries, it's super complex. And the risk of getting this wrong is, catastrophic for these companies. And therefore, yes, they want AI, but how do you provide an agentic solution with control, with guardrails, and that's something that we are specialized in.
So one of the often used phrases, maybe cliches in the AI discussions, is human in the loop. Like the machine will not take away human judgments, we have humans in the loop. What does that actually mean for you? What does human in the loop mean in the contact center experience? And what's maybe a good way to think about it and what's a bad way to think about it?
Yeah, so human in the loop, we firmly believe in it. We think it's a good thing majority of the time if you can provide a seamless journey to the consumer. The good thing is, hey, I try to go through a digital experience. Let's just go through, I'm trying to rebook my flight. We were talking about that earlier. And I'm talking to going through the website, going through a digital experience, whether it's a chatbot, whether it's a drop-down experience or click experience, I'm going through it. And I've got to the last stage where I am able to move my flight to the next day. But before I do that, because there's a $200 extra charge for it because of the flight difference, I need to input my credit card information, and the authentication fails for some reason. Okay, there you say, hey, we still want to hold this because I know how important it is for your flight to get your flight next day. So we're holding this, and I'm connecting with the human that's going to get this done soon for you. And you transfer the call where the human picks up the phone and say, Mr. Carsten, guess what? I got all your information right here. The flight is ready to be booked for you for tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. out of SFO. Let's execute on this. Just give me confirm your last 4 digits of your credit card information that we have on file. Are you okay with us charging it here? Perfect. You're done, sir. Thank you very much. Right? That is a seamless, powerful experience for the consumer. And in fact, a lot of consumers will be pleasantly surprised. They'd be like, wow, okay, you know what? I actually enjoyed being on that call than talking to a human because that was instant value. Where it doesn't work is the same agent picked up the phone and say, hey, Mr. Carsten, great to hear from you. How can I help you today? And you're like, wait, I just went through this. I almost booked my flight. I gave a bunch of information. I did this for a few minutes. And now you ask me, how can I help you? Like, hey, man, I'm trying to get on this flight tomorrow. And I got to jump off this call in 2 minutes. I got a work call happening. That I'm leading, so I don't have time here. It's like, oh, just give me a few minutes. Let me look up. And I'm going through, whatever dashboards I have and looking at different files. Okay, so are you talking about this flight that you want to reschedule tomorrow? And now you're pissed. You're like, what the hell is going on? That's where human in the loop does not work. Okay, and then the places where human in the loop also works is when it is, again, high stake, high value use cases, and that this has a lot of eyeballs, even at the executive level, where it's really critical to get to the next phase after you find out the intent and find out some information through a digital experience, where it's a requirement, it's mandatory that you may need a human to maybe read a policy out loud or confirm certain things before you go into, moving your money from bank A to bank B, right? Or adding someone in your life insurance policy, right? There may be some auditable, mandatory requirement that a human needs to read something out to you. So there, you may have to bring the human in the loop. And it's good because, the humans' roles are changing, and it should, because, you've seen how powerful agentic solutions are. So why have the human do something that an agentic solution can do? At the same time, now these humans can focus on some of these high-value use cases. And instead of them doing mundane work, that they're just repetitive, laborsome work, they can now think in a different way, more strategically, more empathetically, more consciously, to be able to provide world-class experience. So it elevates the human to do a different kind of work than the day-to-day mundane work they were doing before, which can be handled by agentic solutions.
I'm curious where you see the greatest return on investment for AI in the contact center and customer service experience. I'm sure you have these conversations with clients all the time around the return of investment, and maybe also encounter the occasional misperception. Where do you think do your clients overestimate the role of AI, and where do they underestimate the role of AI?
So, that's a great question. And I would say, it's across the board. But if you have to generalize it, people are still figuring it out. Okay? There's some people who have done tremendously well with their ROI. Some people, they've spent a ton of money, but it's not clear how much ROI they've got. And there are a lot in that bucket as well. They spend a lot of money and they don't know exactly what type of ROI they've received. But people are still trying to figure out. And what I'm seeing happen in the market now is a few things that are clear for me. Number one, customers, especially the type of customers we work with, larger enterprise customers, I think the days of doing long-term pilots or spending a lot of money upfront is being pulled back because they haven't seen the type of ROI they envisioned, or it was hard for them to figure out what are the right metrics, because it's a new thing, building an agentic experience. It's still fairly new, and there were some. Everyone knows AI is here to stay. It's phenomenal, but implementing it is not easy. And these people have gone down, gone into deep waters and made these types of investments. And a year later, they're like, wait, we still haven't gone live, or we still haven't implemented, or we've done a use case, but it's not providing a pleasant customer experience. They're running into issues. So what I'm seeing now is they're taking a step back and saying, guys, let's not go and do 1 year, 2 year projects. Let's go short-term POCs and pilots, 30 days, 60 days. Can you, and let's figure out what are the right. So it's coming down, which is great, right? Because you don't want to go just build an agentic solution just to build an agentic solution. You want to focus on the pain point. You want to then understand what the right use cases are. And then from there, go build a solution that tackles that use case, and then do it step by step and then build on it. So a lot of the customers I'm seeing are going down that path now, which wasn't the case, I would say, a year ago or 2 years ago. And a lot of that is because they've had a ton of good learnings. Some of those learnings are coming from success, but a lot of it is coming from failures. And it's still a step in the right direction. Because we live in a world that we appreciate failures, because if you fail and you learn, that's a win. So they are starting to behave in that manner where they've said, hey, you know what, I tried this. Yes, I spent a lot of money. I didn't get the ROI. I've learned some things from it. Let me go try this use case, but let me put a shorter windows, 30-day, but hyper focus on it. Put a team behind it. Let's not let's drag this out. See what kind of results can we get, and let's do multiple of these POCs. With Zingtree, maybe even multiple vendors, and let's see who's providing me a solution. And the solution is not just the tech; it's the people who are involved, how they work with you within a short period. So you learn a lot in that experience, and see, okay, is this the partner I want to go do more use cases with? Did they give me the right results? Did they knock it out in 30 days? So you see that a lot in that short window, when you kind of constrain it to that timeline. And we're seeing that changing and that happening more as we're talking to customers.
Great. Maybe just last question, getting us back to the beginning when you talked about world-class customer experience. So if you had to summarize in one sentence, what would a genuinely transformative customer experience look like?
Two things I'll tell you. One is you started with saying you wanted to rebook a flight. Imagine you just say that just to the brand that you work with. And they do all the work on the back end. And they give you your number one best option. They may give you 3 options and all you have to say option 2. That's it, and it's done. So you don't have to text, you don't have to chat. You use your voice like you're talking to your phone to the brand and say, hey, I don't like the flight I'm on. Can you look at options for me for tomorrow? And the work is done. That is where we're heading. That is the future of customer experience. Basically no interactions. You just say what you want. You have something in your mind and you say it and it gets resolved. That is where we're heading, and I see that happening. The building blocks are there. So that's number one. The number 2 is you talked about ROI. Like, what is the ROI? Yes, you can track ROI for the customer experience through revenue opportunities, upsell opportunities, cost reductions. There's a huge opportunity in our space to get ROI from your brand being known as the best customer experience company in the world. Because when you provide that type of experience, your brand recognition, the value your brand can get is the North Star. So what I mean by that is, if let's take one of our customers is Shark Ninja. Okay, they provide home appliances, smoothie machines, vacuum cleaners. You have an issue with your vacuum cleaner. You say, hey, my vacuum cleaner is not working. They take care of it for you from there. Okay, where you are wowed by it. You as a consumer will put Shark Ninja up here, where every time you're looking at a home appliance, the first thing that comes to you is that experience they gave you, where they solved your issue. And it's such a seamless journey. And that value is going to be the North Star for the future, because there's a lot of room for improvement there. So the companies that take that type of mindset can benefit for the next, for the future. So I think those 2 things are going to happen: the customer experience being so seamless and amazing, and number 2, the brands have an opportunity to stand out, to raise the bar, where they can be, seen as providing world-class experience, and therefore their business benefits tremendously and their brand recognition goes up.
Juan, thank you so much for our time, and thank you for making all of our contact center experiences a little more delightful and less painful.